Slavery! That was a thing in America, but then by 1804, half of America got rid of it, and the other half lost their about it. The slave states are afraid that if they get outnumbered, then the free states are gonna gang up on them and take away their slaves. So they reached a compromise. When new states get added, Missouri and everybody south of this line will be pro-slavery, and everybody north will be anti-slavery. But the slave states never trust the free states. They want slavery in as many states as possible, so they start scheming. One proposal was to get a bunch of new slave states by conquering all of Central America. That never got traction from the government, but one guy and his friends did take over part of Mexico for a minute there. His name was William Walker. He also made himself president of Nicaragua and killed 10% of Costa Rica along the way. Guy was insane. No, the slave states would do what they do best: whine. Because not only do the slave states have slaves, they also get to vote on behalf of their slaves, or at least 3/5 of them, a concession they won from the founding fathers by whining. So now, in 1854, they roll into Congress and put that power to use. They get rid of the anti-slavery force field dividing the country and say from now on, every time there's a new state, that state gets to vote if it wants to do slavery or not. By which, of course, they mean hordes of Southerners will storm the booths to vote for slavery, and hordes of Northerners will storm the booths to fight them, and then they'll kill each other in the streets like they did in Kansas. Abraham "This is dumb" Lincoln is a lawyer in Illinois who thinks this is dumb. The South already has slavery. They don't get to smear it all over the rest of the country. So he becomes a senator and then runs for president in one of the weirdest elections the US ever had. Because of the way America counts votes, every election goes back and forth between two parties, and in the 1800s, that was the Whigs and the Democrats. When the Whig Party crashed and burned in 1852, the Democrats became the ultimate big tent party, but the tent got too big and they couldn't agree on anything. So now, at a crucial tipping point, there are four parties: the Northern Democrats, the Southern Democrats, a bunch of Whig refugees, and the Republicans. The Republicans are a brand new group where all the abolitionists go to party, and they want Lincoln to be their man. But Lincoln wants everybody to know he's not one of those radicals who thinks slave states should stop holding an entire race of people hostage. He just wants to go back to the way things used to be, where the South was a horrifying dystopia and everybody else could just ignore it. Or his name isn't Abraham "Read my lips, I will not free the slaves" Lincoln. The vote splits four ways across the country, and Lincoln cruises to a victory with under 40% of the popular vote. Despite Lincoln's deep commitment to being a moderate who will kick the can down the road as long as possible, the South thinks, "He's coming to take our slaves. I am changing one law. I abducted these babies fair and square, and I'll whip them if I want to." The South secedes and makes their own country, where all men are free to enslave other men. Lincoln orders a militia to put down the rebellion, but mobs in Maryland attack Union troops and sabotage the rail lines. Lincoln declares, "Fine, no trial for you," and starts hauling people off. The Supreme Court Chief Justice tries to tell Lincoln that he needs permission from Congress to violate the Constitution like that, but Abraham "How about I do anyway" Lincoln ignores the ruling, creating an example that will never cause problems in US history ever again. So it looks like the South's hissy fit is going to be a whole thing that Lincoln has to deal with for the next 4 years, so he'd better start talking to his generals. "General George McClellan, at your service." George digs in to defend the capital and wins the Battle of Antietam. And as Confederate General Robert E. Lee makes his escape, McClellan is in hot pursuit. He takes one step forward, looks left, looks right, looks left again, takes another step forward, looks left. "If you're not going to use the army, do you mind if I borrow it?" Lincoln replaces McClellan with General Burnside, who says, "I'll charge after the enemy," launches an unprompted assault and loses. He gets replaced by General Hooker. Where do they find these guys? Hooker loses. He gets replaced by Meade, who does the same thing McClellan did. All right, they're retreating. Okay, we're watching them. Yeah, let's watch them. And Mr. President, we seized a ship carrying 2 Confederate envoys. Their captain wants to talk to you. "You bloody bellend, keep your mitts off our ships." If Britain declares war on us, I will personally strangle you. A few of Lincoln's generals tried to free the slaves they came across, but Lincoln quickly put the kibosh on that. A few slave states had stayed loyal to the Union, and freeing slaves all willy-nilly might make them change their minds. So a year later, Lincoln rolls out a new plan. Listen here, you ungrateful little just for that I am gonna take your slaves. And he passes the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing all the slaves in the Confederacy. The Union was able to divide and conquer the South by seizing control of the Mississippi River, which was kind of the only trading route the South had going for them. They only turned a profit when millions of people worked for free. Not exactly an economic superpower, are they? And when the war was finally over, Lincoln got an idea. Lincoln was actually not a big ideas guy. I mean, he was plenty smart, but he really just wanted to get in the White House, get rid of that one frickin' Kansas law, put the anti-slavery force field back, and call it a day. But he takes the opportunity to amend the Constitution and declare once and for all that no one is allowed to enslave anyone, except for the government if they decide you really deserve it. The slave states who had gotten to keep their slaves earlier were not happy, but what were they gonna do about it, secede? As for the South, Lincoln was focused on getting them back up on their feet and moving as quickly as possible. There was a chance for real sweeping reform here as millions of Americans entered the body politic for the first time, but Lincoln said, "Dude, that's your problem. I'm just here because making more slave states was dumb." And then he got shot by 1800s Robert Downey Jr. The Union was left to rebuild the South without him, and sadly, rebuilding civilization doesn't come with a handbook, or it didn't until recently. I've been reading this book called The Book. It's a literal guide to rebuilding civilization and today's sponsor, and it's definitely convincing me I could run off into the wilderness and be a real-life Dr. Stone. It shows you how to find water and start a fire, and technologically power scales you up to power plants and hydraulic mechs. There's even a cheat sheet on brewing beer and tanks. It's woven together with hundreds of hand-drawn diagrams that show you the insides of coffee makers and radios with little fantastical details that recall medieval manuscripts or Here Be Dragons. This thing is a work of art, and I'm so happy to have it in my home. So if you're into bushcraft or have ever wondered, how does that work? This book has the recipe. Makes a killer gift for history lovers and doomsday preppers. Get a copy with the link in the comments.